So Chazal Avot, 39 years ago, was Tafshin Memhei, 1985, Yubis Tammuz. I think it was Sunday night. I was in California. I just got on Shlichus a week before. That was the first time that Rebbe spoke about the Sfarim publicly. It was an interesting Farbrengen. It was Monday night. It was interesting Farbrengen because there was also a alumnus in the Farbrengen, a Nigle, about the inyan of Melech ben Melech, Ein Moishchen Melech ben Melech. The Chayra was connected to the Sfarim because the Rebbe was talking about a challenge to Nesius. So the Rebbe spoke, the Likutei Sichos, it's in Pashas Chayisora, God, by David HaMelech. Chayisora, there's two Lamdis Nigle Sichos. Chayisora, there's two Nigle Sichos in Likutei Sichos about the inyan of Melech ben Melech because of David, that you have Teireh. Is about the by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke the same inyan. The Rebbe spoke the same inyan. Whether the Likutei Sichos, the Rebbe spoke that inyan about the Melech ben Melech by that Farbrengen. Yubis Tammuz, Tafshin Memhei. He's saying it's a different year, but the Rebbe spoke the same inyan. The Rebbe spoke the same inyan. But anyway, but that Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about the Sfarim. And it took the Rebbe Girat andere Sachen until he got to the Nekuda, to the point of the Sfarim. But one of the things that happened in that Farbrengen was the Rebbe told a story in great detail. And when you listen to the tapes and you read the Sichos in the first years, the Rebbe told stories all the time. In unsere Jahren, if the Rebbe told a story, it usually started with the word Kiyadua, you know. Kiyadua Sipa means I'm not going to tell it to you, you know it already. You know what it already means? You could know it because it's in a Sefer, you know. The Rebbe used to say in unsere Jahren, the Rebbe said, my Morim, right, in the earlier years, the Rebbe said a Maimon, he said a Maimon. And unsere Jahren said, you know, Yedua, Drusha, Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. So I don't have to say the Maimon is already in print. I'm going to say what's not written in the Maimon. You know, our Maimorim, we were kids growing up, our generation, the Maimorim are much shorter. Why? Because he doesn't have to repeat to you the Maimorim from the earlier Rabbeim, they're in print. Learn the Maimon, but of course, if the Maimon is in print, everybody knows every single Maimon Chassidus, of course, so the Rebbe doesn't have to repeat it. He can just say, anyway, but this time the Rebbe told a story in great detail. And then the story was, and I hope I'm told correctly, that there's a Maaseh that the Frierdiker Rebbe needed to be someplace. Okay, I'm not going to. The Rebbe told the story. The Rebbe made a connection with a guy who his Talmud was a big anti-Semite, and the Rebbe the Frierdiker Rebbe was able to get access through his teacher. Could be I'm mixing up two stories. The bottom line is the Frierdiker Rebbe managed to finagle his way into a very, very important government building, which was top secret, like at KGB, behalten, Geheimenis. And he walked through the building like as if he's a balabas. I mean, the Frierdiker Rebbe did not exactly look like a Russian official. He had a beard, and he had beard, and he had a hat. He wandered around the building. He didn't even know where he was going. And he had to act very confident. He had to behave like he belonged there, so nobody should ask him what he was doing there. He found the office that he needed to find. He walked into the office, and there were a pile of gzeres. He looked through the pile. He found the gzeder, and he tore it up, threw it in the garbage, and he walked out of the building. The Rebbe told the story in great detail, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe the Rebbe didn't say it then, but the Rebbe certainly said it, that the Chassidim were telling the Rebbe Rashab that he's not allowed to risk the life of his son so much. You know, the Chassidim, the Rebbe Rayatz, the Frierdiker Rebbe, his father, the Rebbe Rashab, sent him on dangerous shlichusim all the time, a mamish dangerous shlichusim. And one of the Chassidim told the Rebbe Rashab, at Torah Nizam mit Nizon, he's not allowed to do it to his son. And the Rebbe Rashab said to him, maybe it's not connecting to the story, but the Teichen is Zicher Emes, Miftochani azevet Meirech Yomim. Then he said, no, for Askanos they would have to have Mesiris Nefesh. Miftochani azevet Meirech Yomim Zayin. And there's a whole arichas about that as well. The reason I'm bringing up the story is because when you think about the Frierdiker Rebbe's life, Yubis Tammuz happens to be his birthday, by the way. For those who forgot, Yubis Tammuz is also Yom Haledes of the Rebbe Rayatz. His life, his whole chinuch was Mesiras Nefesh. His father, the Rebbe Rashab, raised him from Mesiras Nefesh from the beginning. The Frierdiker Rebbe became his father's right hand at the age of 15. Tov Reish Nun Hey, there's a whole Arichas Asipa, they took him to the Lubavitch, took him to the oil, and he said, Ich nehmde to the Akedah. The Frierdiker Rebbe was 15 years old, and his father made him his right hand, the Olyan Baskanas Buddhist. The Frierdiker Rebbe served the Jewish people for 55 years. 25 years under his father's Hadracha, and 35 years as a Rebbe and Nasi. And if you're familiar with the Frierdiker Rebbe's Mamar Mesiches, in Tavshin Hey, in 1945, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, organized a magbis that Chassidim should give a certain amount of money to print Dafke, the Frierdiker Rebbe's Mamar Mesiches, for the Yevel HaChamishim, for the 50 years since the Rebbe Rayat, since the Frierdiker Rebbe became a public servant. You could see it in the Sefer Maram Yiddish, for example. The first page, Sefer Maram Yiddish, it's a page with a bunch of names, and the first name on top on the right side is Menachem Mendel Ben Chana. They have a copy of the Ksav Yad, you can see it. So the Rebbe signed on top of one column, and the Rashag signed opposite the other column. And people gave money to print the Frierdiker Rebbe's Torah, and it was in conjunction with 50 years of Askanas Buddhist. The Frierdiker Rebbe became a servant of the Jewish people at the age of 15 years old. And from that point, the Rebbe Nishmaseidah, the Rebbe Rashab, relied on the Frierdiker Rebbe in an incredible way. You know that the Rebbe told a story during Shiva, when the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away. So you can look at the Sichas Chelik Beis in his office, where the Rebbe said, the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away Shabbos. The Levi was Sunday. So Tuesday was the third day of Shiva. So after Shachas on the third day, the Rebbe turned around and he said, and the halach is, Shleisha Lebchi Shiva Lehesped, that for 3 days you cry and for 7 days you eulogize. But uns machnish kein Espedim, the Chabad custom is not to make any eulogies. Or the Tzel Meises from the Rebbe Mishra, tell us the Frierdiker Rebbe. And I heard from one of the Dubovs that Rabbi Yitzchak Dubov was here. Rabbi Yitzchak Dubov happened to be in America because his son, Label, who davened here, got married Thursday night. Ches Shvat Tavshin got married. So Harav Yitzchak Dubov was here for the Chasana. And he knew the Rebbe was the Rebbe, no question about it. It says in the Sefer Yemei Bereshis, but I heard the story before, that on Tuesday, Yud Gimel Shvat, the Rebbe went to the oil. In the middle of Shiva, the Rebbe was not a novel. The Rebbe was not a novel, it was an Edom. So in the middle of Shiva, Tuesday, Yud Gimel Shvat, the Rebbe went to the oil. And when the Rebbe finished whatever he had to do, Rabbi Dubov stepped forward. He was older than the Rebbe by a lot, maybe by close to 20 years. And he said to the Rebbe, Biz itzter gewend der Rebbe, und itzter, however he worded it, zentir. Until now it was the Frierdiker Rebbe, and now it's you. 2 days after the Stalka, so the Rebbe snapped back. The Rebbe leapt. Don't even think about it. The Rebbe leapt. The Rebbe is alive. But in any case, so Rabbi Dubov davened with the Rebbe's minyan. And he had all kinds of shilos on the Rebbe's anhoge. The Rebbe didn't clap slachnonu. Before he said Mishnayos, he ran his hand against his forehead. And every story that the Rebbe told was an answer to one of his questions, b'machshava. He was thinking, he saw certain anhoges by the Rebbe, and he didn't understand. He didn't say anything to the Rebbe, but after davening, when the Rebbe turned around, the Rebbe answered his questions that he was thinking. It was pretty powerful. It's very unnerving when someone reads your thoughts and answers your questions. But one of the stories the Rebbe told during Shiva is, at the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rebbe Rashab came back from Iceland, from out of the country. And he told the Rebbe Shteibel Sarah that he bought the Frierdiker Rebbe a cane with a silver handle. It was a makel of koved, not a makel of kovoid, not a makel of koved. The Rebbe Rayatz didn't need a stick. It wasn't old and frail, but it was even koved. And he told the Rebbe Shteibel Sarah, ich habe them ausgegeben the letzte Geld. The last money I had, I used to buy the stick. So she said to the Rebbe, Rashab, he doesn't exactly need a stick, yeah. So the Rebbe Rashab said to his Rebbetzin, ich hab sich erst itzte der Wurst wer is. The Rebbe Rashab said, I only found out now who he is, his own son. I only found out now who he is. Now you can explain it in different ways. B'chitzonius you can explain it because he met other Rebbes and he saw other Rebbe kinder. So he came back to Lubavitch and said, but I think it's deeper than that. The Rebbe Rashab told the Rebbetzin, from 15 years old, the Frierdiker Rebbe was served the Jewish people. And you read how he describes his life. The Frierdiker Rebbe talks very straight. The Frierdiker Rebbe doesn't, there's no anivus. He talks straight about what it means sacrifice. His whole life was sacrifice. His whole life was sacrifice for the Jewish people. In an unusual way. Even amongst the Nesiach Chabad, there's no Rebbe who lived this way. None of the Rabbeim, from the age of 15, didn't have a life. There was no such thing. A Rebbe, before he was Rebbe, was by himself. He was learning, he was davening, he was doing what a good Jew does. The Rebbe Rayat, at the age of 15, became a servant to the Jewish people. And of course, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand that the Rebbe Rashab gave the Frierdiker Rebbe these responsibilities, not just because he was busy, and he couldn't find anybody else to do it. He gave the Frierdiker Rebbe because it was part of his chinuch. The Rebbe Rashab, a good verstanden, the Dorva, the Rebbe Rayat wird haben. The Rebbe Rashab understood what kind of generation the Frierdiker Rebbe was going to have, and he spent 25 years being madrich him, teaching him, rearing him, directing him in the inyan of Mesiras Nefesh. Fana Asipur. Chabieski is an another Gersa from the Maise. But the way I remember the story, and if I'm making mistaking in the details, I apologize, but the Nekuda of the story is true. I just recently saw the Maise from somebody else, from Yotis Kisa Tafesh Hayin Gimel. But the way I remember the story was Simchas Teil Tafesh Hayin Aleph. But, okay, that's a detail. The Nekuda, the Maise, who did I see it from? Zalman Shimon Dvarkin. Someone made a chasana and gave out a circular, gave out a chura, a stories from Zalman Shimon Dvarkin, and I read them. And he writes that with Yotis Kislev Ayin Gimel. But if I'm not mistaken, I saw it from Fola Khan, if Yud L'chitik, a different date. But the story is true. When it happened is a detail. That there was a Farbrengen, and the Rebbe Rashab took a lot of mashke. The way Yud L'chitik tells the story, the Fola Khan tells the story was that it was Simchas Teil Tafesh Hayin Aleph. And in Lubavitch, they were doing remont. They were doing what we're doing here, what the shul was doing here. They were expanding the shul. They're working on the shul. So they couldn't use what you call then the Greiser Zal. The big Zal, the big shul was not available. So the Hakofas was made, the Farbrengen was made in the Kleiner Zal. The Kleiner Zal, the small shul was older. It was from the Rebbe Marash's times. And so the Bacharim, they were Vada Masada. They organized everything, arranged the room. That shul was not used by the Rebbe in a long time. There was a big oilam, there were a lot of chassidim, a lot of Bacharim. So the Rebbe Rashab Mistam Davan, they had chassidus in the Greiser shul, in the Greiser Zal. And now, because of a practical consideration, they used the small Zal. Most of the Bacharim who organized the Rebbe Rashab's place, Pashut, were not old enough to remember it. But you could see it in Teir Shalom. They put the Rebbe Rashab seat in the exact spot where they had made the Tahare of the Rebbe Marash. In Zal. You imagine? The Rebbe walks in, the Rebbe Rashab walks into Farbrengen, and it was set up by the Bacharim. And his seat was in the same spot where some 30 years earlier, 28 years earlier, the Rebbe Marash Tahare. He became Gevaldik Beis Rakshas. That Farbrengen is famous. The Rebbe Rashab said, Ich bin am Taten sa Kind, aber ich bin am Taten sa Knecht. Ich hab gekannt der Tate. Wer noch, ich ziehe es schon, wer noch hat gekannt, Meishke, there was a chassid named Meishke Shemen, it was a mashpiyah, und Efshe Greinem. The Rebbe Rashab was incredibly emotional, and he took mashke. And he got so intense that they were pushed afraid for his health. So they called his mother the Rebbe's Nifke. And again, everything I'm telling you, Zalman Shimon said happened like Yitas Kislev 2 years later. And the Rebbe's Nifke walks into the Farbrengen. The Rebbe's Nifke, the Rebbe Marash Rebbetzin. So naturally, the Rebbe Rashab stood up for his mother. If the Rebbe Rashab stood up for his mother, the whole room got up. And the Rebbe Nifke goes over to his son, her son, the Rebbe Rashab, and says, maybe take a break. And the Rebbe says, why would I take a break? I'm sitting with Chassidim, I'm sitting with Anash, I'm sitting with Tmimim. It's a Chassidish Farbrengen, why would I interrupt? So she said to him, Dir is nicht gut. In Yiddish, dir is nicht gut means you don't feel well. But it also means you don't have it good. You were given a bad hand. So she meant to say dir is nicht gut, that you don't feel well right now. You took a lot of mashke, you're very, very emotional. And it's Pashut, you're understanding to feel it's Pashut not safe. But the Rebbe heard the other meaning, that your life isn't good. And the Rebbe Rashab responded, mir is nicht gut. Mir is good. Mir is God good. Halavai soll Yosef Yitzchak sein as a good. I don't have it good. In Zalman Shimon writes, Zol der Zun, Zol Eretz have as a good. But if I'm not mistaken, one of the Rebbe said, I don't have it good. I'm in Gan Eden. Halavai the Friedrike Rebbe. In other words, the Rebbe Rasha, but good verstanden. Understood quite well what was going to be. And the Rebbe Rayatz, Friedrike Rebbe, was raised from Mesiras Nefesh. It's very simple. The Friedrike was raised from Mesiras Nefesh. And his whole life was a continuum of Mesiras Nefesh. Mamish, it was a continuum of Mesiras Nefesh. The Friedrike Rebbe, Mesiras Nefesh gewesen, al kol tzad. His whole Mesiras was Mesiras Nefesh. His whole Mesiras. I heard a story when my father-in-law passed away. I don't know who told it. Someone came into the shiva and told over a story that in the name of Rabbi Nemenov. I never heard the story before. Again, I cannot vouch for the veracity of the story, but it's an unbelievable story. That Rabbi Nissen was in Leningrad in Peizayin. Rabbi Nissen Nemenov was in Leningrad, where the Friedrich Rebbe lived in the year of his arrest. And the Friedrich Rebbe knew that he was going to be arrested. The Friedrich Rebbe knew that it was a matter of time. They were going to arrest him because he had pushed the envelope too far with the Efsektia. He knew they were going to arrest him. So the story that Rabbi Nissen repeated, this is what I heard, was that the Friedrich Rebbe called in the Rebbe, our Rebbe, who was a bocher at the time. And he asked him certain shalos and halacha about how you're supposed to behave when you find yourself in jail, where you don't have privacy, and the toilet is sitting in the same room. And he asked the Rebbe, our Rebbe, Piski dinim halacha l'maisa, how he should behave if you find himself in such a matter. And then he told the Rebbe, I just want you to know that these shalos that I'm asking you are not negir to me. Because I'm going to be Mesa Nefesh for Keitzeh Shayud. I'm making no compromises. I'm going to make it precise in the Eifel Lechatchila like I'm in my own home. There's going to be no bedievits at all. Ich will lo bewissen wie a chassidische Rov tracht. That was the lashon. Ich will lo bewissen. The Friedrich Rebbe asked the Rebbe wie a chassidische Rov tracht. Was meint a chassidische Rov tracht? A chassidische Rov tracht. A chassidische Rov tracht. A chassidische Rov tracht. Cheshboinus was nicht nur Cheshboinus Nalocha. It's Cheshboinus. It's different Cheshboinus. It's different Cheshboinus. It's different Cheshboinus. And this is Yibis Tammuz. Yibis Tammuz is a Yom Tif, is a Chag that's about Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is a funny thing. You know, Mesiras Nefesh is a funny thing. I was at a Farbrengen last night. I asked the Chaver, what's the difference between a principled person and a Meshuggah? When is a person principled and when is a person a fool? What is the line between being principled and being crazy? Where's that line? Where's that line? It's not a logical line. You can't explain it to pesechel. It's an atzmi line. One person does something crazy and it's Mesiras Nefesh. Another person does something crazy and he's pushed on Meshuggah and he's locked up. Yeah, the Friedrich Rebbe's whole life was lived on that thread. His whole life was lived on the thread of Mesiras Nefesh. So, I don't know what to say for us, but this is the inyan of a chassid. The inyan of a chassid and the inyan of chassidus is this line. The inyan of chassidus is this line. This line means to say many questions that we have answers in Shulchan Aruch. Some questions that we have don't have answers in Shulchan Aruch, they have answers in Chassidus Shulchan Aruch. But every once in a while we have a question which is not written in any sefer. They're questions that are core questions. They're questions of Ikir. And these questions can only be answered by a Chassidish Rav. The Friedrich Rebbe called the Rebbe a Chassidish Rav. Is, punkt, the Rebbe is a little more than a Chassidish Rav. But occasionally we find ourselves in situations where we have questions that the question cannot be answered based on a logic or an order or a form. It has to do with the Kodesh HaEmes. And a chassid has to have a connection to the Kodesh HaEmes. He should be able to know. He should be able to know what the right thing is. And the whole Chassidish life really is about that point. The whole Chassidish life is about that Nekuda, that you have to know what is the truth when you can't find an answer in any sefer. I said to you, I was last night in Florida. I don't want to give you a repeat of last night's Farbrengen, I'll get sued for repetition. But one of the things I mentioned was, we raise our children. We raise our kids. We give them a certain kind of chinuch. This chinuch is based on the teachings of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's hashkaf, the Rebbe's teira, the Rebbe's hadracha. And we oftentimes find ourselves in situations where we're asking ourselves, is this right or is this right? And there are instances where you cannot answer the question based on a book. You can't even answer the question based on an existing sikhe. You have to just have a chush and emes. You have to just know, like we all ask ourselves, what would the Rebbe say? What would the Rebbe say in this situation? And your whole life has to be lived a certain way to be able to answer that question when that question comes up, You don't become a Baal Mesiras Nefesh when the circumstance requires it. The whole life has to be lived in the kind of way that if, God forbid, a person finds himself in this kind of moment, the matzah, he's able to give the correct answer. To mechavad zayin to Ratzon Elyon. L'chaim.